Hey everyone, this is our first episode of Working Like a Dog, featured by Canine Wizard TV. In this episode, we are talking with Jack Anderson, who is the senior canine handler at Denver International Airport, and we're going to be talking to him about how he employs his dog, some of the things he does to train his dog. Give me a little bit about your background, about what you've been doing for the past 5, 6, 15, 20 years in your career, not necessarily specifically about the canine industry, but give you a little bit of background about what you're involved in.
I started out enlisted in the Army as an MP. Got to do a lot of really fun things in the Army. I got to do SRT, kind of lame, but I got to do bike patrol, but I really kind of liked bike patrol. From the Army, I transitioned out, went to college, joined ROTC, and I distinctly remember when I went to college and joined the ROTC program. The building housed both the Air Force and the Army. And if you went to the left, there was the Air Force side, and if you went to the right, it was the Army side.
Right.
After being in the Army and deploying with the Army, it was very easy for me to go left and down the Air Force side. So I went through, and I was on a quick commissioning program in the Air Force through the ROTC program, commissioned into the Air Force, and then became a security forces officer. I started out in the missile field, running nuke security and whatnot. From there, I was actually pulled over to be a part of the upcoming and at the time newly created Tactical Response Force.
Okay.
And so I did that, and I did that for about 4 years. Then got an opportunity to work as a contractor. I worked as a contractor for a company that supported the Department of Defense, and our primary role was to do threat assessments for bases and airfields throughout Southeast Asia and the Pacific region.
So Jack, let me ask you this question. Fast forward 5 or 6 years. How did you and I meet?
We met once my contract ended. I kind of hit a period of unemployment, had to find a new job.
As we all do. as being professionals in the security industry.
And contracting is a very dicey world.
Right, absolutely.
It's money, and then
and then stagnation. Right.
Yeah, go find something else. I just happened to be searching and perusing through websites and found an opening for TSA canine handler. My time in the military, although I was not a canine handler, I had plenty of dealings with canine handlers. Being in the Army and an MP, we would call on the canine units. In the Air Force, I had canine units assigned with us.
Right.
So I was like, oh man, that looks like a pretty cool way to make a living.
Right.
And ended up applying and going through the process and got picked up for it. So I met you after I got selected and picked up. I got a school date and had to go to the training in Lackland.
Right.
You were my next door neighbor. And
so before we get into what that experience was like of you being my next door neighbor, let's dive a little bit more into what it took you to get hired into TSA. So let's talk, because I know a lot of our viewers are going to ask that question, like, I want to be a TSA handler. I have experience as being a handler, whether it's in the conventional, military, or the law enforcement world. So let me ask you some of those steps that you took to actually being hired. What was those things that you were able to do to get you that leverage about being hired?
The biggest question because I get asked the same questions. The biggest question I get asked is, oh, do I have to have a dog background? No. You really don't. It helps for sure.
Right.
Because, and I'll walk you through the process as it goes now.
Okay.
The first thing you need to do is create an account on USA Jobs.
Bingo. For all of you out there looking at accessing a federal job, you got to create that USA Job profile. Okay.
Yeah.
Go, Jack.
There's no other way to do it. You have to go through USA Jobs. So create your profile, upload your resume, and upload any supporting documents, be it an SF-50 or...
Whoa, hold on a second. There's a lot of guys out there that don't know what an SF-50 is. So kind of explain that to us.
Basically a form that documents your federal service.
Okay.
The same with the DD-214. So if anyone who's served in the military...
Yeah. All you guys know what that DD-214 looks like.
It's important. Those are the documents you're going to want to upload along with your resume. And it makes it very easy. When you create your account, it walks you through the steps to actually build your resume. So that's step one. Get your resume in there. Tips and tricks. No, you don't need to be a dog handler. No, you don't need experience, but you definitely want to highlight any sort of experience that you've had working around dogs or working near animals. The next step is once you plug all that stuff in and apply to it, your resume is going to go through kind of a keyword finder, and they're going to look for buzzwords and keywords that highlight those things. You'll be asked to take what is called the Canine Handler Aptitude Battery. What that is a test, and I can't get into it because they don't want us to.
Right. Absolutely. Do not disclose anything, and nor should we be disclosing anything during this interview or anything that we provide that will, just put anybody in a compromising situation. So
it's a test, and it's a strange test. But what's going to happen is after you take that test, 100% of that test score is going to account for whether or not you fall in the federal government, there are 3 levels of qualification. You have best qualified, qualified, not qualified. Your score on that test is going to put you in one of those 3 categories.
Okay.
Hopefully, you make it into the best qualified.
Right.
Once you make it into the best qualified, the computer is going to spit your name out and is going to put your resume out to whatever airport it is you applied to. Okay. So once you take the CHAB test, and hopefully you score high enough to...
So again, I don't mean to cut you off, but what does the CHAB stand for?
The Canine Handler Aptitude Battery.
Okay, thank you.
Once you do well on that, your resume will automatically be forwarded to the airport you applied to. And from there, an actual person will sit down and comb through your resume. And if it's well written and well articulated, even if you don't have canine experience, if you have a good, strong resume, it'll be a candidate. And they'll put that, what they do is they kind of, there's a point system and
they calculate that.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's not just about canine. We're not looking for prior canine handlers. We're looking for people that can actually do the job. Yeah.
Correct.
And so they'll look at your resume, they'll score it, and if it scores high enough, it'll go into another pile where these are the people we want to call for an interview. And depending on your geographical location, you'll either do an in-person interview or you'll do an over-the-phone interview. When it comes to the interview process, I can't go into what questions we're going to ask and how they're going to ask, but wink, do some research on how to do a good interview.
Right.
Do your diligence and know how to speak.
Right.
Know what you want to say and be able to say it well.
Interview. would you recommend them having the person repeat the question?
Oh, for sure. Like if there's something you're not clear about, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But tips, what I did, because I'm not articulate naturally, what I did is I went through probably, I don't know, 10 different websites I found just typing into Google how to interview correctly or what questions to expect.
Right.
And I looked at those types of questions and I looked back in my past and I actually sat down and wrote out narratives on how I would answer that question. So
Jack, explain this to me with a guy with your experience with being an MP, being actually an officer in the Air Force, and being involved in the high threat environment, being a contractor. What appealed to you about getting this job as a dog handler that was a bit more unconventional than your normal?
That's a good question. I'd always really wanted to do dog handling. Like
Okay.
when I was in the Army, I really wanted to be a dog handler. I came down on orders for Korea, called Department of the Army and said, hey, can I get dog handling en route to Korea? And they're like, no, sorry, we're full on dog handlers in Korea.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, I really don't want to go to Korea. Do you have anything else? And they're like, well, we have openings in Germany, and that's the route I went. So I always wanted to be a dog handler. I just, it never mirrored up. And
so, Jack, let's talk about Canine School. So, what are the key components or the key strategies that anybody that is hired as a TSA handler that they need to consider when they're going into the Canine School down there in Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio?
The best advice I can give anyone is go with an empty head and a closed mouth. Be prepared to get shotgunned with information that you may not be familiar with or you may be familiar with. At the end of the day, listen to the instructors. And, it's like any other school. You're going to get stuff that maybe you agree with, maybe you don't agree with. It's a school. You need to go with what they're telling you because it's their school, it's their house. Don't go there prepared to rock the boat and make new statements. Like you're going to reinvent their wheel.
Right.
That's not what you're there for.
Right.
You're there to learn, and you're there to learn their methodology.
Talk to me about the weather down there in San Antonio.
It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I got lucky. I went through September through
Well, hold on a
December.
second. We went through.
I
went through.
We went through half of it at the best point.
At the best point.
If you can get a school date that's September through December or January, you're golden. If you're going to get a school date that's like May on through August, bring a lot of water.
So what should you be prepared for? As far as what do you bring down there?
Bring a good pair of duty pants that you're not afraid to get dirty.
Okay.
And you're not afraid to ruin, and you don't plan on wearing when you actually become operational or have to be in the public's view. T-shirts. There were a group of us. We went down to Walmart and bought a bunch of $8.99 T-shirts that we could just wear and be sweaty in.
There you go. And that's the information that everybody out there wants to know. What do you wear down there? So tell me about the kennel facilities where you keep the dogs, or where they keep the dogs.
Where they keep the dogs, it's in the same place that DAWG keeps their dogs. So,
and when you say DOD, what are you talking about?
Department of Defense, so the military dogs.
I'm a little confused. How is it that the TSA dogs are there with the Department of Defense dogs? Explain that to me real quick.
It's all basically the same program.
Okay.
And it's different agencies, but it all falls under the same umbrella. the same standards apply.
Okay.
So, if you're a DOD handler or a military handler that's familiar with the programs, absolutely the same standards are there. If you're not familiar with those programs, then you need to understand they're very strict.
And they're very similar.
100%, yeah.
Okay.
And it's not because they're jerks or they're just trying to like make you do silly stuff.
Okay. Thank you for saying that.
They're there to protect the dogs, and they're
And
there
to establish a framework for the proper care for dogs and how they should be introduced into whatever domain they're going into. Whether
Absolutely.
It's the DOD. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, the standards are all there. Like one of the big pieces that I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's stupid. Is announcing your dog, going through a door, going through a gate,
Dog coming out, dog coming through,
yeah.
Gate closed, I got the gate,
Yeah.
all those things, right?
And that's a big thing. And you feel like, do I really want to be that guy that's yelling it out? Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
because
you do.
it's important.
Right,
And
absolutely.
It's not because anyone's trying to make you look silly.
No,
It's the protection of the dog, the handler, and everyone else in that environment.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jack, for bringing that up, because it is really, at the end of the day, about the protection of handlers, other handlers, and dogs. So let's talk about your experience after you graduated Canine. Well, actually, let me diverse back to Canine graduation. What was that like?
It was fun, man. Honestly, when I went through the program, it was a 3-month deal. Now it's a 4-month deal.
Okay.
So that's a sizable chunk of your life that you're dedicating to doing this.
Right.
And that's an investment. And if you have a spouse or family
Right.
members that you're giving up, and anyone that's deployed or
I've dealt with that in their life.
Yeah,
Right.
It's a big deal.
Right.
So for sure, graduating was a relief.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of fun. Like I made the most of the opportunities I had while I was down at Lackland. There's tons of attractions and things to see. So I enjoyed that. But graduating was really, like, I felt like I accomplished something. Like I felt like I made it through a big deal.
And would you consider, because of that graduation, that you were a part of a network of professional dog handlers?
Oh,
at the very least.
For sure. Like I met so many amazing people, like guys and gals that were great dog handlers in the military, guys and gals that were great in whatever respective field they did. I mean, I made a lot of really good friends. I keep in touch, no kidding, with every single person I went to Canine school with.
So, Jack, tell me about some of your great experiences at Denver International Airport.
Some of my great experiences are just days that I've come in, no idea what I really wanted to do, knowing that I wanted to just work a dog, and then coming up with a weird problem. Like, hey, we're not going to train in the areas that we train in. We're going to go train in this off the beaten path field, and we're going to see if the dogs can find a buried egg.
Awesome.
Those are my days that I really like. The days that we're able to go out and challenge the dogs and challenge the teams, those are the days that I love.
So would you agree that those unconventional aspects of just like putting your dog in this situation that they are not typically exposed to in the airport are great experiences? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. At least in my mind, the focus is how far can we push these dogs? How far can we challenge them?
Awesome.
Like, what can we do to make them fail?
So let me ask you this question. What is your interaction with the public, and how do what are those exchanges like as far as being a canine handler for TSA?
The first thing I'm going to say is we are not drug dogs. We don't care about your weed. We're not looking for it.
That's right. Right.
My second is we literally paint the dogs and do not pet. So please don't pet them.
Right.
But after that, my interaction with the public is great. For the most part, people love seeing the dogs.
Right.
And when they understand what the dogs are out there doing, looking for
They
explosives,
appreciate that.
absolutely, yeah. Oh,
That is awesome.
you're looking for weed? No, we're looking for explosives. Oh gosh.
We're here to protect you and protect the airlines industry and protect the transportation infrastructure.
Yeah, we're
So
making sure your airplane doesn't explode.
Right.
Like literally, we're here for your health.
That's awesome. So, Jack, let's segue into another conversation about how you and I have kind of built a relationship with Havoc Tactical Solutions. Let's talk about a little bit about that product and what Havoc Tactical Solutions does for everybody out there and some of the products they provide.
Man, I'm so glad you asked. No,
hold on. First of all, I want to do an introduction because my relationship with Jack Anderson goes further than that. Outside of the canine industry, it goes further into understanding about what this guy offers to the security industry, one, and two, that he was the one of the founders and engineers on a very appealing product that is out there in the tactical industry that is for firearms in the firearms industry, and that is the deflector brake that is manufactured by Havoc Tactical Solutions. So I'm going to let Jack talk a little bit about that and explain what that is all about. Jack, tell me about what you're involved with.
The deflector brake is probably one of the greatest pieces of equipment you can put on a rifle that you never thought about. And it was developed with a really good friend of mine, Donnie Hayes, who actually runs and owns the company. Former TACP, attached to...
Whoa, hold on a second. I don't know what a TACP is.
Oh.
So explain that a little bit to me.
He's a terminal air controller. He's an Air Force guy that basically they put into an SF group, Special Forces group,
okay,
to actually drop bombs. But they do a lot of raids. They do a lot of running gun.
Right.
One of the problems that he noticed is rounds when they would bounce off of the deflector would, if a guy was too close, go down his armor. Just the system we have on our weapons were not good.
Right.
He came up with an idea to create a accessory to put on a rifle that would not only prevent rounds from just bouncing off of the deflector brake and into your buddy's,
the guy next to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Armor system. It would actually put brass into a predictable spot. If you were a guy that shot recreationally, it was something that could protect the brass so you could reliably use it.
And so it was convenient.
Yeah.
Convenient to put brass in a specific area.
Absolutely. And
have you ever had an uncomfortable situation with a passenger at the airport?
Here's the thing. When it comes to doing that, like we go into the various parts of the airport, and our goal is just to sweep for explosives.
Right.
Our dogs are non-intrusive.
Right.
They do not make contact.
And how do you work through that process, and how do you mitigate it? I know that's a lot to throw at you at the same time, but what I'm trying to capture is that the way TSA and the Department of Homeland Security trains these dogs is that they are not aggressive dogs, one, and two, that they are friendly enough to be involved in the environment to detect an illicit substance that is introduced into the environment.
Uh, the first part is you need to work your dog to where it doesn't have the opportunity to make contact with source. Like that's the big piece. Like
Right.
for your dog to have a final response, it shouldn't have to hit source.
Right.
So you need to work at controlling your dog and keeping it away from source. And then the second part of your question is, yeah, you keep it away from source, but you encourage that drive to hit source. Like even though you're pulling it and you're keeping it away.
Wait a minute, Jack. That is very challenging for a dog that is trained to work wake. So how do you do that? Explain to me how you do that. And I'm not talking about what the traditional or conventional sense is in vapor wake dogs or how dogs work wake. But I'm asking you, how do you do that?
I do personally, if I have a person and a plant, I keep my dog away from it. Like I hold her back and I add pressure. And as I add pressure, I hope that she digs in harder. And as she digs in harder, I apply more pressure. If she's truly in odor, she'll continue to work through that back pressure. When it comes to like the EDC style, I do plants to where she cannot get to source. Like I don't do a plant to where she can get get to source. Like it's too high or it's too far or it's behind the parakeet. Yeah. She can't get to source.
That is a great example of that.
And I let her work it out. And
and I understand for all you out there asking about how these dogs work in the transportation security realm, it can be very challenging for these dogs to switch gears in those domains of traditional explosive detection and passenger screening. But it is possible, and Jack is explaining how he does it to get those dogs to kind of how he does it with allowing that pressure, that back pressure, and driving those dogs into it. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. So Jack, as we close out this episode of Working Like a Dog, give me some
words. Dude, seriously? If being a TSA canine handler is what you want to do, man, go into it. Just be prepared. It's not going to be anything that you're used to, as long as you're good at messing with your jewelry.
It's not going to be anything glamorous.
It's not going to be anything glamorous, man. Get in. And if you can get in, it is definitely the best paying federal dog handling job you're going to get.
Across, hands down.
Yeah, there's no comparison.
Like, you're not going to get anything better out of that.
Yeah, entry level.
Yeah,
Best.
Yeah.
We want to extend a thank you to Mr. Jack Anderson from TSA for giving us the opportunity to sit down and chat with us about the TSA program, his experience before coming to TSA, and with his experience with working at the Denver International Airport. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this first inaugural episode of Working Like a Dog. God bless.